This clothing store. What they tell us is that yes, their loved ones are undocumented, but we spoke to the son of one who says he's been here for 15 years. He's a tax-paying homeowner here from the community. We spoke to an 18-year-old girl who got the call while she was at school. She was told something's going on where your dad works, and she came down here tearfully talking about what was happening here, not understanding necessarily, but knowing, and actually had a visual of her father through the window of that store. We're going to move away from this car, but as you see, there's still people lingering here. The activity has then such dissipated, but really tense scenes down here in downtown as this operation was going on. We're going to send it back to you in the studio.
You know, Lolita, before we let you go, we know that there are advocates down there were federal agents down there. How about local law enforcement, more specifically the LAPD, and what role, if any, are they playing in all of this?
Great question there, Michael. We have not seen any LAPD officers. We do know that the FBI, I got confirmation that they were also a part of this operation, as they are now assisting Homeland Security in these types of operations. It's only been federal agents that we have seen. We've talked to some store owners when this happened a couple of hours ago. They say that cars that came in, tinted windows, and about 40 to 50 individuals wearing FBI jackets and the like had gone out and were going into a store here that's on the other side of the street over there. It's a clothing store, it appears, that was part of this operation. It appears that they were looking for folks that were undocumented. It is a place that was known, quote, according to the folks that told us about what was going on, that this was a place that hired undocumented people, and that's why it was the focus of this particular operation. But when things escalated, we had people on the street, we had people banging on the door saying, let them out, let us talk to them, that kind of thing, is when we saw the more military units coming in down the street, closing everything off about an hour ago, and then the situation really escalated where you could see the tear gas and feel and all of those operations. We did see a few white vans leave that location, the back side of that location. Where they were going, it is unclear, but we do know it is part of this operation, as they were looking for undocumented individuals who were working at that particular shop. And we have choppers all around here. We have folks also that are, as you can see there is one law enforcement chopper like checking out from high above, but here on the ground we did not see any locals. There are folks out pretty much on all sides of this location. We have people on roofs taking video. A lot of folks here, just very surprised by what this happened. This all came as a shock to folks that were not just here and going about their daily business, but also with folks who were, finding out that their loved ones were inside and they had no communication with them.
That's right, Lolita. You mentioned that it is one of a few that we've been hearing about. Again, the U.S. Attorney saying this is part of an ongoing immigration enforcement operation across the city. So we want to get now to our Amber Frias. She's also on the ground. She's in downtown L.A., also covering another location where we got these reports. Amber.
Hey, Annabelle, I know you guys asked Lolita if she saw any LAPD presence out there. Well, we saw a lot of it here when we arrived. LAPD officers were kind of guarding the entrance to this business here. This is Ambience. It's a clothing manufacturing company. And so when we arrived, there were also a lot of community members out here, a lot of groups who were trying to provide support and rallying in defense of what was going on inside. It was really unclear what was happening. There was a lot of people who believed there were ICE agents, that this was an immigration raid. We have not been able to confirm that yet, but we did speak with LAPD, and according to them, this had nothing to do with immigration. They said the DEA and the FBI were here serving a warrant. They were looking for someone, and that's why they got here. But that once word spread that there were federal agents in the area, the community started to gather and started to rally outside. That's when the LAPD showed up, because they were called in by the DEA and the FBI for backup. Now, LAPD tells us they are only confirming one arrest that happened here. They do tell us there was a person who vandalized the federal agent's car, who may have also been detained, but they are only confirming, again, one arrest. Now, like I mentioned, there were a lot of people here early today rallying for the support of the employees in there. Right now, the area has pretty much cleared up. There are several community representatives still here speaking with people. We have seen some people who appear emotional but have not been able to speak with them. One community organizer tells us she's been in touch with at least one person whose loved one was detained. So a lot of information is still unclear here. We're working to bring those details and that information to you. Back to you.
All right, Amber, before we let you go, again, just confirming from the LAPD to you, one arrest made at your particular location here this afternoon.
Yes, and they say it had nothing to do with immigration. They say this was a DA FBI investigation.
All right. Good information, Amber. We appreciate it. Live for us in downtown Los Angeles. Our Conan Nolan is monitoring these raids as well from our newsroom. Conan.
That's right. So the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Escalation, said that, yes, this is part of an effort to go after employers who knowingly employ undocumented immigrants, that these were warrants signed by federal judges, and that that is fundamentally what the raid was downtown. Now, to Amber's point, the immigration status of individuals in Los Angeles with regard to the LAPD in the city of Los Angeles as well as the state of California, there is, they call it the Sanctuary State Law, SB 50, the California Values Act, whatever you want to call it. It essentially says that local law enforcement cannot be used to enforce federal immigration law. Now, the feds say that's okay. They don't need the LAPD's help in administering these kind of raids, but they don't want them to stand in their way either. So there's a bit of a balancing act when it comes to whether the police department somehow even shows up. Now, to Amber's point, apparently it was not related to immigration, and that's why the LAPD could take part, and it had something to do with drug enforcement. We'll yet to figure out how many, the one individual arrested there. But the other raids, that's very different, which is why it was obviously, I think there was a point that the police department made to not go there and not to take part in any way, shape, or form. And it gets a little dicey, though, because does the department, does their responsibility start to engage when it comes to crowd control? That's something different from immigration enforcement, and that's something different from what the FBI and Department of Homeland Security is taking part in. So once again, from the U.S. Attorney, yes, this is part of an effort to crack down on employers who he says were using false documents, frankly, and we can assume that these are false Social Security numbers, and that they knew that, and that they have a history of that, and that is why they were targeted by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as DHS and the FBI. Unprecedented as I can remember. For the longest time, there have been many companies that have used undocumented workers in the downtown district and elsewhere, certainly in the farm fields of the Central Valley. And that has not been a high priority for any administration, quite frankly. But it is a priority for this one, in large measure because of the standing of illegal immigration as it pertains to what happened in 2024 and the surge at the U.S. border that turned that issue into a national one. And based on all the reporting over the election, a highly toxic one for the Democratic Party, one of the reasons why Donald Trump won. But in any case, once again, from the U.S. Attorney himself, who's responsible for the adjudication of federal law in the Central District, that's L.A., Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, 20 million people, the largest federal district in the country, that this was about employers who they knew were using illegal documents to employ people without documentation here illegally, and that is what they were responding to, these raids taking place on a Friday, which, by the way, if they do make arrests on Friday, and they do have to come up with habeas corpus, that is a reason for why you're arrested, and the paperwork sorted. The 2 days of the weekend, the clock stops. So it gives them a longer period of time to file and figure out how to file, what to file on any individual that's arrested or taken into custody. That's one of the reasons why law enforcement frequently does these things on a Friday.
All right, Conan, we, of course, are looking at these images from earlier today. We saw all of these people at the ambience company there looking with their cell phones, just trying to capture what was happening inside of this building. Want to turn things over now to NBC4's investigative reporter, Eric Leonard. Eric, if you can, we just heard Conan talking about the LAPD presence in at least one of these locations. What are you hearing from your sources?
Yeah, well, we don't even have to go to our sources on this one. The LAPD chief sent us a statement earlier this afternoon, just reaffirming the department's position that officers do not take part in any kind of immigration enforcement effort. They don't participate in federal task forces that have any kind of an immigration overlay, and that officers personally or directly will never be involved or assigned to be involved in any kind of action like this. As we've been seeing, though, there are some fringe areas where it becomes important for there to be a local police presence. They were talking about crowd control. Certainly if people are out in the streets blocking traffic, that does become a local police matter. As far as the overriding interest here, I mean, I think what we're seeing is exactly what the federal prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI had all signaled very publicly earlier this year that they were going to do, which is to shift a greater portion of federal law enforcement resources over to immigration enforcement efforts. We got a note from the FBI about an hour ago that confirms FBI agents are involved in this, and it seems to signal that in fact this is somehow related to an immigration enforcement effort, whether it's going after people who they believe aren't in the U.S. legally specifically, or as Conan was saying, what the U.S. Attorney relayed earlier, that it may have more to do with an employer who's suspected of hiring people without proper documentation. That all now falls under this umbrella. Anecdotally, I can also tell you, because we monitor the goings-on in federal court day in and day out, over the last few weeks, I want to say maybe the last 2 months, there's been an outsized increase in the number of criminal illegal entry, meaning people in the U.S. without authorization, criminal prosecutions of people on those allegations. I've been a reporter a long time. I don't ever remember seeing more than a handful of those over 25 plus years. And just in the last 8 or 9 weeks, there have been dozens, if not daily, each week. So it signals that there has been a decided shift in the approach of federal law enforcement to handling these cases out of immigration court, which is largely considered a civil matter, and into federal criminal court, where people could face prison time and then, of course, potential deportation if they're found to be in the U.S. unlawfully and they determine that a crime has been committed as well. There's a number of factors that go into that, but we're seeing it in federal court really for the first time in many, many years. Back to you guys. All
right, an obvious shift indeed. Eric Leonard live for us there in NOC. We want to get back out to NBC4's Lolita Lopez. She's live for us in downtown Los Angeles. Lo.
Yeah, Michael, I first want to echo what Conan and Eric were both saying in terms of unprecedented. I've been doing this for more than 30 years, or almost 30 years, from New York City to Los Angeles, covering very incidents like this one. And the scale and scope of this and how fast that it escalated is something that I have not seen in my career. Just want to take you down here at Stanford Avenue. Right now, traffic is moving rather smoothly. This was not the case earlier when we told you military vehicles were coming in, personnel with what looked like SWAT outfits. They had very heavy machinery and also wearing masks to cover themselves from gas. There were many advocates here talking to the folks inside of the clothing manufacturing store that you heard Amber talking about. This is where we have been since about 11 a.m. when it was determined that ICE agents and other folks, including FBI, U.S. Marshal, we also saw were here at this location. As you can see, surveillance is still up ahead, and surveillance in terms of police and others just kind of making sure to keep eyes on the ground here, as this had been a very chaotic scene. In fact, when the folks got here and they were trying to get, the military folks got here and the agencies, thank you, the agencies got here and were trying to excuse me, I just got handed something, and this is one of the things, excuse me, sir, this was something that you found on the ground? Okay, this is something that a person found on the ground. It looks to be a flashbang, and if you caught us earlier when we came to you right at the 2 o'clock hour, that is what you were hearing behind me as it was going on, as those vehicles were leaving with the federal agency once the operation here had finished. And I want to take you to a young lady who we talked to just after what appears to have been tear gas was thrown. Take a listen to her.
There's like a couple people that were just like crying profusely.
Yeah, tell me what happened.
Honestly, it was starting to get pretty aggressive, and people were pushing. They were pushing back. They're trying to open the gates right now, and I don't know. I guess they threw tear gas to open up the space.
And did it catch you?
Yeah, it caught a lot of us. There was kids, there's dogs, there's elderly people too.
Yeah. And again, I want to show you up close here what some folks have been picking up from the ground. It appears to be flashbangs that were used when they were trying to disperse the folks that were here, the advocates. As you see, fire and paramedics, we're not sure where they're going. Right now, we don't see anyone in any type of ill harm, but this is what we were getting from folks from on the ground. Flashbangs that are here on the ground. It appears to be that there's somebody that is, here you go, thank you so much, and thank you so much. This is what we're talking about in terms of things kind of happening as we're seeing them and getting there. The fire department that you just saw, the paramedics just went over to the side there. We're gonna go check out and see what that is just in case. Jorge, do you wanna walk with me actually? Let's walk down here. Thank you guys, appreciate you. And right now, even as we're dispersing, it just appears that someone might be in some sort of condition there. We're going to keep it light here as we take you down the street. We're again on Stanford Avenue, just down from that clothing manufacturing store where the immigration operation happened. Of course, Conan Nolan getting our confirmation from the U.S. Attorney Central District Office talking about what happened today across this area. And, you know, right now, as people try to get back to normal, it really is not normal at all. Yeah, we see a gentleman there on the ground being taken care of. Or we can stop right here just to give that person some privacy. Getting taken care of, it seems, by maybe what appears to have happened. This area right here, as we walked about half a block down on Stanford Avenue, was where we had heard the flashbangs and that banging sound. We were just up the way earlier when we heard that live on air at about 2 o'clock. So you see two people there sitting on the ground talking to paramedics there from the fire department. We'll check in with them to make sure that they are doing okay. But this is right now the scene. It has sort of simmered down a little bit at this point. Very chaotic operation that in my career I have not seen kind of go down this way. But as we get more information, we'll of course bring it to you.
You know,
go ahead.
Lolita, as far as the people that you're seeing there, do you still see anybody who's concerned that this might still be happening?
In terms of the operations, yeah, you know, we were talking to some of the business owners who were caught by surprise by what was going on. Again, they said that at about 11 o'clock, there were cars with tinted windows coming in, and then about 40 to 50 agents. We talked to 3 different people, came out of the cars and just went to that one particular clothing manufacturing store on Town Avenue, just 1 block to the east of us. And, you know, many of them actually locked their doors. We watched them do that. They say that they're a very close community. They kind of keep together. They respect each other as business owners and, you know, friends out here. And so they are concerned about the things that are going on in this area. You heard Conan talk about it. It is not a surprise in terms of the workers that are down here. This has generationally been a place of manufacturing. In fact, the clothing stores that are down along that way are wholesale, which means you have to buy in bulk. This is where companies come and small clothing business stores come to get some of their products to then sell in their stores, either here locally or around Southern California. So it is something that folks are still very concerned with. We've seen some stores open up, but some have stayed with their doors locked across this area. Still a little shaken up about what happened here earlier this afternoon. But as you can see, the traffic is flowing again on this area, and we're, you know, looking to see what else is going on, trying to see on the ground if we can find any evidence of what we did hear happening earlier today. in terms of them going across this operation. We still see some helicopters up above doing some of the what appears to be sort of surveillance, making sure that the scenario is clear in terms of there being no more hazards and/or people not getting into any trouble along the way here. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this and take a look and bring you more as we get it.
Yeah, Lolita, before we let you go, just to give the sort of the lay of the land for our viewers and presumably for myself, in terms of where you are and where Amber is, the Ambience clothing store, are you guys in close proximity to each other?
Yeah, so we're about a block away. In fact, my photographer, Jorge Diaz, and I were at the front of the store earlier. That is where most of the operation first began, right? That's when the business owner said they saw ICE agents come out. They were on 9th. We went over one block only to 10th. It's the back of that clothing manufacturing, and that's where the vans were that were, it appears to be taking the people that they may have taken in from inside of the store, and that's where they were going out. And that's where people were then gathering. They went from the front of the store to the back within the 2-hour period, seemingly knowing that there were going to be folks being taken out in that way. And as they were trying to, in terms of the agencies that were here trying to disperse folks in order to get that gate open to get those vans out, is when we saw the tear gas happening. So we are about a block apart from each other at this point.
All right, appreciate the geography lesson. And again, the paramedics that we saw pull up close to the Ambience clothing store, perhaps caught in all of that activity and commotion that was going on earlier today. Lolita Lopez, live for us in downtown Los Angeles.
That's right. And we want to get to our Conan Nolan. He's also monitoring these raids from our newsroom. Conan, I do want to mention that LAPD Chief Jim McDonald sent out a statement saying, "I'm aware that these actions cause anxiety for many Angelenos, so I want to make it clear the LAPD is not involved in civil immigration enforcement." Also, keeping that in mind, the anxiety that all of this is causing to anybody who lives here in the city, a city that is supposed to be a sanctuary city.
Right. Absolutely. It's a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. But what exactly does that mean? You have the supremacy of federal law, and you can't fight, that is the federal government, when it comes to enforcing federal law, and that's what was taking place here. Keep in mind, this happened in the middle of the afternoon, and although it was on a Friday, the Trump administration, there is no question about this, wants this to be high profile. They want the coverage. They want people to see what's happening. That's one of the reasons why the Director of Homeland Security is posing in flak jackets and actually doing commercials with federal money, advertising the fact that they're going after undocumented immigrants and those who employ them. So this is part of the administration's pledge to rid the country of those here without federal authorization. That's part of the immigration debate that was so central to the 2024 campaign. So part of this was designed to get as much attention as possible. What's also fascinating about it, though, is that, as Lolita pointed out, and we've never seen this in the so many years of covering Los Angeles, and that's what comes next, because there's a consequence to every action. And the consequence here is that you're starting to go after sections of the economy, certainly in the manufacturing economy, where there was a dependence for so many years on those of questionable illegal or immigration status. And we saw that not just in places like the manufacturing districts of Los Angeles, both downtown and elsewhere, but also, as I mentioned earlier, in the farm fields of the San Joaquin Valley. If you start as aggressively as this Department of Justice believes that they should, start aggressively going after undocumented immigrants, what impact is that going to have on segments of the economy that the state, and not just this state, but red states as well, where they depend on that kind of labor in order to keep farms functioning and the economies of those states functioning? We shall see. But right now, it does seem that there's a high probability that an intentionality here of the government to make sure people are aware that this is happening. And I can tell you that this is a message being sent to every employer who may have been like the one that was the subject of this raid, that you are on notice. This could be you next. It also goes to those who are working at these places, who are there with, again, with questionable legal status or working with a false ID, you may be next as well. So there's no question an element of fear, some of intimidation for so many members of this community who have been untouched for decades. But now this is a much different administration in Washington. And as Eric said, we've never seen a redeployment of force from institutions like the FBI or the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office focusing on immigration the way we have now. And there are long-term consequences for this. And remember, there's a trade-off for every policy. You're seeing it now. They're going after people who are here without authorization and for employers who've been employing them. But there's a trade-off to this as well. And we're going to be focusing on that on the days and weeks and months to come.
You know, Conan, there's obviously been a shift because the Trump administration early on said we're going after those who are in this country illegally who have criminal records, who do harm in our country. There seems to be a major shift now. Basically, if you're here illegal, you're at risk of being taken into custody.
Right. And it started with the press secretary who, when asked that particular question, that it looks like the DOJ and Homeland Security is broadening the profile of who they're going after, and you've stopped going after people who violated the law. And she says, well, wait, they've all violated the law. They're here without authorization. That's a violation of immigration law. So they have broadened the scope. Anybody here without authorization, regardless of whether you've been working here for years, say in the Garment District or in a strawberry field in Ventura County, you are here illegally and you've broken the law. So you are within the realm of what we said earlier. We're going after those who are here without authorization. But part of this is public relations. Keep this in mind. Remember, it was Barack Obama called the deporter-in-chief, who deported far more people than, or almost as many, if not more, than Donald Trump did in his first term. And that was because Mr. Obama was trying to get an immigration deal and focusing his effort at getting Republican support by saying, listen, we are going to enforce the border. He didn't do it this way, though. He didn't do it with going after employees at a place, at a garment manufacturing district of Los Angeles. This is being done in part to get the message out and to get it out to not just employers and undocumented, but also to the MAGA base, that is the president's base. You asked me to do this. This is a priority, and here we are.
You know, Conan, so you also spoke with U.S. Attorney Bill Escalation earlier today exclusively. You got his reaction about these widespread raids. Let's listen in.
There is a nationwide effort to enforce our immigration laws, and there's a step up in enforcement. This is part of that effort. The particular raids you're referencing, my office prepared search warrants for particular businesses where there is probable cause that they're using fictitious documents to employ people. And those warrants were signed by a federal judge, and they were executed on Friday.
Would you say that there's a lot of that taking place, not just in California, but I mean in terms of downtown, but in the farm fields of the Central Valley?
Well, unfortunately, these laws haven't really been enforced for a long time. The prior administration did not enforce these. We have filed just this year 500 felony cases for illegal reentry. The prior administration didn't really do that at all. So you're seeing a step up of enforcement across the federal government on a lot of areas and laws that just were ignored.
All right, so Conan, it just appears as if this is only the beginning.
Yes. Now, the U.S. Attorney is an interesting fellow. He is a former state legislator. He also used to be with the Attorney General's office before as a federal prosecutor. He's also the son of immigrants. His parents are from Lebanon, but they came through here illegally. If you he went on to say in that interview, which broadcast Sunday morning, that he feels for the people that are here. He does not. And he blames those who promised them employment when legally they didn't have the right to do that. So, but yeah, there's no question about it that when it comes to the enforcement of federal immigration law, we have turned the corner, and we're looking at things we've never seen before. And as I said earlier, the ramifications of this we're going to figure out down the road. It's the law of unintended consequences. I think the administration says that they have an obligation, they have a right, they have a duty, and this was what they told the voters in the last election. On the other hand, though, they've also promised a strong economy. It's hard to have an economy when you don't have workers, and that's part of the problem we're seeing in downtown.
All right, Conan, thank you very much for that. If you can just stand by for a moment there. We want to also bring in Carlos Gonzalez, a business owner who had to shut down operations today because of these protests. Carlos, first of all, what kind of business do you have, and then whereabouts are you located?
Well, we're actually, hi, by the way. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. A lot better than what we experienced today earlier here in the Fashion District. We are about a block and a half away from Ambiance, and then we do a lot of private labeling, logistics, consolidating for boutiques nationwide. And a lot of these vendors actually, send product over to us, and then we send it out again across all 50 states and internationally as well. So these kind of things, these kind of actions are actually counterproductive as far as how it impacts the economy, because not only is there a huge fear aspect. For example, in my case, as we've seen in previous raids and social media and everything that's going on, these people, they don't ask questions. It's just like they put you in handcuffs, they throw you in, and we've gotten a lot of reports from friends and other people in the industry that throw you in jail, ask questions later, and a lot of the times people aren't even getting due process and are getting deported within the same day. Like they get handcuffed in the morning, in the evening, they're already in a different country. And that definitely affects, our community in general, and it has a domino effect in the economy, which unfortunately this administration is not paying attention to. They're focused into trying to, make America great, but harming the economic factor, and all this fear is not going to turn out positive. It's something that is, the people are starting to raise up. I'm a Mexican. I was actually brought here when I was a baby, raised all my life, undocumented. Thank God I was able to, apply for legalization, currently have documents, but it's still that fear that I remember when my parents, when I was small, they would tell me, Carlos, make sure you do good in school, make sure, sorry.
No need to apologize.
Make sure you try not to, shoot, even pay your taxes one way or another. File some type of documentation. Make sure that you're not a bullseye to calling out attention. And that's what a lot of people, they don't realize that most actual immigrants that have been working, that are the backbone of this country, we're literally supporting our families, and we're trying to build a better future, not just for ourselves, but for our community. And, there's a lot of racist groups that are just blindsided by whatever comments are being made, and not understanding that it ultimately affects them, and it is going to affect them down the line. And they don't really care what happens to our community, which is very, it's hurtful to us, because, again, majority of anything that is being worn by any given citizen on any given day has been touched by an immigrant. And if it wasn't because of us, majority of this industry, as far as fashion industry, there wouldn't be any industrial economy as big as it is right now. And, maybe I overspoke a little bit, but it's just so frustrating, having to see, like, the military here's like, why are people in it? How are they here on the streets just creating all this fear? It makes no sense, and it only creates a lot of anger. And eventually, if it goes unchecked, unfortunately, people are going to start getting hurt, which obviously nobody wants to see. But everybody is getting pushed to that limit. Not just here in the Fashion District. We saw it in San Diego. We saw it in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just, it's heart-wrenching to see families being torn apart. And, it's not about doing it the right way, because we already saw people are getting detained also when they're going to their court cases, when they're going to their citizenship, last hearings. And it's extremely frustrating. Frustrating.
Carlos, and I can empathize with your thoughts on this. It's obviously emotionally charged, but there is a segment of the voting population that stood by President Donald Trump when he said, I am going to do this, and they elected him president. So what do you say to those folks who said, this is what he said, this is what he's doing, and this is what I want?
Well, it's funny because, again, I've been in business for over 15 years, and a lot of my colleagues, as far as business, not necessarily partners, but vendors that we deal with, majority of them actually voted for the industry. And we've had adult conversations as opposed to, their thought process. And, I'm always for growth, for mutual respect. I'm always for, moving forward as far as like what can benefit the general aspect here as far as the fashion district goes. And then we've always had our back and forths. And currently, all of those vendors, and I message them all the time, is like, hey, did you see what's going on? A lot of them now are quiet. And all they tell me is and it's even more frustrating because what they tell me is like, well, I didn't know that this was going to happen. I didn't know that, this is not exactly what I voted for. I thought they were going to go, after a certain group of people or a certain community, and it's frustrating to me because it's like, you're a business owner, you should know, how to leverage risk. You should understand that this is not the first rodeo. We've seen this in the previous time where this administration was in effect, and all it caused was chaos. And
Carlos,
I remember that.
Carlos, we want to thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your words. We understand, and we are very sympathetic here also to your thoughts.
All right. Again, we will continue to monitor the situation as this unfolds. Meantime, you can get up-to-the-minute details on the NBCLA app and, of course, on our website, NBCLA.com.
That's right. We'll see you right here on the NBC4 News at 3.